Welcome back everybody to a new video. Today I have an Alpine amplifier on the test bench, MRV-T420 V12. The amp is brought to you by the bass loving giant Andre. Thanks again for sending in this amplifier. This amplifier has some special design features. You have a cover plate where you can loose this hexagon screws and lift up the cover to make adjustments to the amplifier. And you can remove another cover where you can make your power connections and speaker connections. Here on the other side you have another end cap. You can remove the end cap by hand, hide some speaker wires behind it, or make the amplifier look much better. Here we have the gain part, goes from 4 volts to 0.2 volts, and it has a center detent, and at the center the input sensitivity of the amplifier is 1 volt. And here we have the low pass and the high pass filter. Both work with 12 dB per octave, and the high pass filter goes from 15 Hz to 400 Hz. This is very useful if you want to save your ported subwoofer box from over excursion below the tuning frequency. And the bass knob goes from 0 to 12 dB. Here you have your speaker and power connections. If you want the amplifier to operate in bridge mode, you have to use the outer terminals. The manufacturer rated this amplifier at 12 volts and 14.4 volts. Now let's get to the dyno test.
The Alpine is connected to the dummy load, and as usual I start with continuous power 1 kHz per channel into a 4 ohm load. I have connected a 8 ohm mono load to get both channels driven into full power. Capture this one. We got 63.6 volts. I got around 129.5 watts into a 4 ohm load, both channels driven with a 1 kHz input signal. Continuous power test, but this time with a 50 Hz input signal. And with 50 Hz we have a peak voltage of 62.8 volts. With 126.4 watts the amplifier stays strong in lower frequencies. Let's have a look at the amplifier's power consumption. We have 28.9 amps. 0.8. With 28.8 amps the amplifier has an efficiency of 65.7%. 20 cycles test for dynamic power, and I check the last cycle of the 20 cycles. Free of clipping we have a peak voltage of 63.6 volts. That means dynamic power with 20 cycles is the same like continuous power with 1 kHz. With 8 cycles we have the same peak voltage on the last cycle. That means dynamic power 8 milliseconds is also continuous power with 1 kHz. For a short period of time the amplifier can deliver more dynamic power, just for 2 milliseconds, because the first cycles are at 69.6 volts. These 2 cycles are unclipped, and then you see clip, 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 clipped and reduced. So just for fun I calculate the value of output power with 69.6 volts. In this case we have an output power of 155.3 watts into a 4 ohm load, but just for 2 milliseconds. 2 ohms per channel with 1 kHz of continuous power. Top of the waveform. We have 55.2 volts. With 55.2 volts I have an output power of 195 watts into a 2 ohm load of continuous power with 1 kHz. Testing the amplifier's efficiency. We have 49.8 amps. The Alpine has an efficiency of 57% if all channels are loaded with a 2 ohm load. Continuous power test with 50 Hz. We have a peak voltage of 54 volts. With 54 volts the amplifier still delivers an output power of 186 watts into a 2 ohm load with a 50 Hz input signal. Dynamically with 20 cycles. The amplifier delivers also 54 volts, all cycles at the same voltage level. Now testing with 8 cycles. I observe the last cycle. And I have a peak voltage of 56.8 volts. With 8 cycles, the amplifier delivers a dynamic power of 206.8 watts into a 2 ohm load per channel, all channels driven into full power. I'm going down to a 2 ohms mono test. I'm just testing with dynamic power. First I start with 20 cycles. First I make sure that all cycles are at the same voltage level, and yes they are. So I'm going to the last cycle to observe if there's clipping or not. Last cycle is shown here, and they are free of clipping. So I try to raise the gain up a little bit and show what's happening. Oh, I reduce my input signal. Now we have a clean signal. Stop signal input, and I got a peak voltage of 44 volts. We have 484 watts into a 2 ohm mono load with 20 cycles of dynamic power. Now I'm checking the output power with 8 cycles, and you can see the last cycle has some kind of distortion. I reduce the gain until it gets clean. Now I have it. I observe the last cycle. Take a single shot, stop signal input. And we have a peak voltage of also 44 volts. Same output into a 1 ohm load like with 20 cycles.
Let's switch to the sound check. If you find this video useful and you like it, why not leave a thumb? Thank you very much for watching. See you next time on the next video. Bye bye.